Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Dalton Payne, and I'm here to present you guys my yummy Mimighoul Solfachord deck profile. Give you guys just kind of a gentle breakdown of what's going on with the deck, why I chose to play it for YCS Pittsburgh. If you guys don't know kind of what I'm talking about as far as why you're even seeing this deck profile, you can check out round 8 against Adichia, where I will be haunted by a second Fulos probably for the rest of my life, and I maybe should have made Ripplebird a little earlier, but I'm gonna talk about my decisions even during that match, and I'm hoping I can present this to you guys so in a way you can probably make it better than what I did. But I made day 2, lost after round 12 in kind of 2 games. I got Shifter Fluid, which is just really unfortunate against Malice, so that was a loss there. And then against DDD of all decks, I got Dark Ruler and then Harpy's Feather Duster. So again, sometimes they just got it, but super proud of how I played. But here, we'll go ahead and we'll get into the ratios. Starting off with the main deck, this is the usual stuff for Yummy. It's just 3 Cupsy, 3 Marshmallow, 1 Cookie, 1 Lolly, and then your Surprise, Acro Key, as well as Mignon. Again, all of this is just pretty standard for the most part. You would expect maybe in such a large build that I wouldn't play the Acro Key, but it didn't make sense as far as what I needed to decide from my siding patterns, and helped with the deck's overall weakness, which for the most part for Yummy is just removal. As well as just give me a better Draco Tail matchup, because Brandon Draco Tail was all over the place. And then probably the best engine, hands down, I dare say, in this game is by far the Solfachord stuff. So to explain some of the ratios, this is 3 Promoa, 1 Cutea, and I run what is the non-standard 2 Solfegia. So for the most part, I run 2 Solfegia because the primary combo line, I'll show you with one of the extra deck cards how we can do this, is we can get to the Omni Negate and have both Solfegias in scale. And the idea is really, if I'm playing against a deck that I know can push very heavily into my board, like Mitsurugi, then it's nice to have both the Omni potential from Solfegia as well as being able to have the second one in scale, so that way I can negate the Murakumo, right? Because this card actually activates more so as a like Rhizo Cross. So there is a combo that ends with both scales and the Kulia, which again just does very well leading into Mitsurugi, which is what I was trying to gear all this towards. Promoa also just in and of itself might be better than Cupsy against my match against Jesse Cotton. Was it? No, it wasn't Jesse Cotton. It was Christian Urena. I was on top deck. I was praying to God for a Cupsy, and I got a Promoa, and that just kind of got me to the rest of my combo. So it was pretty good. And then now to the engine that I think single-handedly got me the farthest. A little bit out of shock value, but I think it covers a lot of the same. It covers a lot of the same advantages that Mitsurugi Yummy does for this deck. So I'm playing 2 Mimighoul Dragon, 1 Mimighoul Archfiend, 1 Fairy, 3 Maker, and only the 1 Dungeon. Now for the most of you who are playing Mimighoul Yummy, this is not too weird to look at. I chose not to play Room just because, again, it was another card that didn't do anything for me. It doesn't add anything to my end board. It doesn't impact a certain deck in a way that felt very fitting. So I chose to play this ratio. The only card in here that you really don't want to see would be the Mimighoul Archfiend, but we're playing a 50-card deck anyways. And for the most part, this is an extender, and then everything here searches. So you're really putting in about, we can safely say 6.5 good cards for 1 just kind of mid and bad card. But I'll explain how sometimes even seeing this isn't that bad. There are times where you're trying to force out a Fulos from your opponent. You can just activate this card in hand, special summon it to your opponent's field, any of them, and then they have to Fulos you beforehand, and that helps you gear your plays around better rather than just pre-committing to a starter. So I can do that, and if they don't fool me, then I know I'm safe to play with my Solfachord lines. Inherently as well, all of these cards by themselves, again, they get us straight to Yummy combo, and I think play better than the Mitsurugi cards because I'm not playing as many bricks. I'm not playing as many conflicting engines. The Mitsurugi cards, for me, do not guarantee that you're bridging into your yummy line. You're praying because you have to mill 4, and then you technically do have other chances based on what your opponent's playing. But I didn't like that I didn't have that guarantee. I knew that if I opened this engine, I had a direct way into yummy line after doing full Mimighoul combo. And the Solfachord stuff inherently, yes, gets me full yummy combo, but it also gets me full Mimighoul combo as well. Right now, so for the most part, that's the larger part of the engine. I made some side decking mistakes I want to point out real quick. So for those of you trying to play this deck, I really found that sometimes during certain matchups, you would just side out the entire Mimighoul package, and that is just wrong. That is flat out wrong. It's not wrong to side out some of the Mimighoul package, but if you're going to side out the majority of it for certain cards in your side deck, leave one dragon in your main deck. The reason for that being when you summon Giant, you'll have a card that can enable a removal later with Ripple Bird, so you can just clear the board with the dragon. Or you can just burn your opponent 4,000 life points, which I did several times, and I also did to my opponent on stream. Which, by the way, shout out to Aditya. You played awesome, dude. I still believe you probably have the most broken, just 5-card starter hands I've ever seen in my entire life for that event. But, dude, super deserved. It was such a pleasure to play against all the pro players that I got to play against during that event. So shout out to you, my dude. Seriously, congratulations. You totally earned that YCS win. Back to the rest of the profile. So the reason why I really wanted to play these cards is because I think Triple Tactics Rust is probably one of the most broken cards ever printed. If you ask my opinion, Konami should probably do something to this card, like put it to 1 or maybe just flat out ban it. I don't know. But I think this card's insane. Being able to, if my opponent's playing board breakers, I can just inherently force them to activate cards using the Mimighoul stuff. Because for the most part, people understand that I'm playing Thrust in game 1, and then games 2 and 3, they'll hold their interaction. And now my Thrust loses a lot of value. This is the only deck where I break my rule that you should not play Hand Traps and Thrust at the same time. You should play, for the most part, one or the other unless you're siding in breakers. But this deck can get away with it due to the Mimighoul cards. So I can just force the activations. My opponent will still have a monster, so then Thrust actually turns for a Rhoda. The reason why this is really broken is actually because of how Happiness interacts. So you search 2, and then you special summon up to the number of monsters your opponent controls +1. But if you give your opponent a Mimighoul, you can special summon both, which means you're extending through your combos without having to commit to your normal summon, and that is actually what won me quite a few of my branded Draco Tail matchups during the entirety of the event, especially early in day 1. So we're just playing some usual Thrust targets. I play 1 for 1 because this is the only card that I can search off Thrust that actually bridges into any part of the engine. It is not by itself a great card, but it was in there. It baited some Ashes, so that way then the Thrust or Happiness would resolve, and Happiness is just a broken card. Talents, just because it's talents, again, force the activation. There were several times where I'd give my opponent a Mimighoul Archfiend. They would lose a card, I draw a card, and then I give them another body. I search talents, and then I rip another card from their hand. I did that to my K9 Vanquish Soul opponent during round 11, and that was GG right there. And then 1 called by, just because it's broken, you have to play it. Really good going second. Moving on to the hand traps. Again, I do play a good variety. Just kind of lay them all out here. 3 Fulos, just inherently the best. I played 2 Meows for the event. My teammate Alvi Vargas, shout out to him. He also made day 2. He was kind enough to lend me his Meows, and I wasn't sure about their performance because inherently they didn't draw me a lot. But what they did do more so was just limit the size of my opponent's board, which is more so what these hand traps need to do if they don't also double as board breakers. And that was my criteria for playing hand traps for this event, is they have to double as board breakers. So inherently, these cards are all good into pretty much a lot of the major matchups. This is Mitsurugi Yami, Draco Tail. Playing 3 Ash as well as Double Bell, 3 Imperm, and 3 Purge. Again, there's not a single one of these cards that don't feel great going second to the majority of your high-end matchups. I felt like the better I did, the higher impact these cards got into later rounds. So that's 50 card main deck right there. Moving on to the extra deck, too snatchy. You need some extra deck space, and honestly, if you're managing your resources correctly, which you should, you really don't need the third one. The third one is sort of taken place by the Link Karibo because you need a Link 1 that can help bridge both engines to get into your yummy stuff. As well as this was technically a flex spot, but I had to respect Nibiru, and I got Nibiru 3 times at least during that event. And honestly, all of them were from Draco Tail players, but being able to make the Link Spider and just continue playing just kind of made the never matter. Beyond the Pendulum, by far one of the most broken cards. Something to be careful of, though. This came up in my match against Jesse Cotton, where I got a PE minor from the judge. This is going second into his board. I activated Purge, and then I tried to use this effect. And fortunately, we both had caught it in time, and the judge allowed us to rewind the game state because there was nothing that was randomized. Everything was searched, and everything was public information between the both of us. Shout out to Jesse for being really kind about that. He's a very professional player. And so just guys, be careful. When you're playing Purge, careful not to activate these dark effects. This includes Link Karibo, right? So, but this card's insane. Pay 12, search any Pendulum monster. This is how you get to the second Solfachord. I'm not going to show the combo because I want to hold it for bringing this deck to Pittsburgh Regional, North Carolina. But I'll probably show it after. I've definitely got some major changes I'll make to the deck. 1 IP, 1 SP. These cards are just insane. But again, same deal. Be careful about the dark effects. This only happens when you open up Purge. The one card I definitely want to cut, but I'm having a hard time bringing myself to it, is Herald of the Mirage Light. I never made this card. It was never relevant, but I do think it was because, for the most part, during a lot of my matchups, I get hand trapped to death, and then I would have to try to keep going. And then easily the best card, what I thought would protect me in my match against Aditya, and it turns out double Bestial, well, specifically Ball Drake and Jerusalem just kind of outside. It's Grand Solfachord Coolia. This card's just a nominee negate, and you kind of need that when you're doing pure Solfa, trying to bridge into your yummy lines. Nothing too crazy there. Synchros, 1 of each of the primary Cupsy names, and 1 Herald. No level 3 tuner for the most part. Again, there's a little bit of redundancy there. This deck just shoots out so many bodies that you don't need to get the extra bodies off of Metal Marcher. Samsara is not necessary because I'm not playing Mitsurugi. And I actually just hardly made this card. I made this card maybe 2 or 3 times, and I think the 3rd time I did it, I got Dark Rulered, so the card just didn't matter. Giant Mimighoul. This card's probably my GOAT now. People just don't read this card on summon, search any Mimighoul card, and what won me several of my matches and at least 1 game off of my round 8 was just give your opponent the dragon, or whichever, detach, pop for 1,000. What I want to point out is that I had to pop the field spell because if Aditya did nib me, then I would lose my target, and then he wouldn't lose 1,000 life points, so I had to target something that I knew he couldn't remove. So shout-outs to Giant Mimighoul there. And then Ripple Bird, this is the card that helps trigger all the Mimighouls, as well as allow me to play probably the most toxic card that's in my side deck right now. Shout-outs to the Neymar token. Side deck, 3 Joel, the third Bell, rather. This is just an easy siding in. This is against Mitsurugi. This is also against Draco Tail, just to kind of see an extra name. And then 2 Dark Ruler, 2 Lightning Storm, Raigeki, Harpies, and then 3 evenly matched. This is a ton of board breakers, but in a format like where we are now, board breakers plus hand traps just pair insanely well together. So when I knew I was siding out a vast majority of Mimighoul engine, I knew I was just putting in, what is this, 2, 4, 6, 9 cards that were just fantastic into just about every single matchup. For the most part, your Mimighouls aren't doing too much when you see them on their own. You want to try to see other cards. But being able to play 50 card deck and then have what essentially was like 30 card non-engine and then 20 engine, just, it felt really good going into the day because I had so many answers to wide variety board states that a normal summon of just 1 monster, honestly any of the starters, was just game after that. Heartbeats for the Storm. I know we didn't resolve it against round 8, but if it did, maybe I would have won it. This card does need to get banned, though. This card is absolutely unfair. I won me my match against Christian Urena because you just turn off all monster effects, and then your board already is just so oppressive that there's no amount of turn 0 play. There's no amount of anything really that can happen, especially on Yumi Mitsurugi's side, that can really push anything further than that. So, just kind of get rid of this card. And then the card I never saw all day, but that probably would have helped me out as well, as Anti-Spell. This is probably along the same line of cards that should be banned. That's pretty much it for the deck profile. I've got major things that I do want to change in the deck leading into Pittsburgh. It doesn't do too well sometimes into pure Yummy, just because their non-engine is not only just so large, but it's so close together in the deck size that sometimes I can't have every push for every hand trap. And then just to explain a little bit of why I went further into the Fua in round 8 against Aditya, my hand, I had no guaranteed way to kill. My thought process was if I pass turn, he maybe commits a card or two, I'm forced to Featherstorm. He's smart, he holds his resources, and if I draw, if I don't see Yummy, I can't kill him, and Dracotail's probably just going to beat me in that grind game. But hindsight's always 20/20. I'd probably do it again. But again, shout out to him for having that second Fua. That was crazy, man. All right. Appreciate you guys, and hopefully you'll see me again after Pittsburgh. Take it easy.